Hey guys, I'm Adam, and this is week 6 of our math section of the SHSAT, and today we're going to be talking about inequalities and their solutions. And like usual, when we begin, I'm just going to, bring up some key tips that I want you guys to remember when approaching these problems. So, the first thing that I want to remind you guys of is that inequalities are basically linear equations. The only difference, well, there are two differences, but the difference is that they will either have a less than sign, a greater than sign, less than or equal to, or a greater than and equal to sign, right? Instead of an equal sign. So basically you're saying that the thing on the left-hand side of the inequality is either greater than or less than or greater than or equal to or less than and equal to the thing on the other side. But when you subtract, add, do all the operations on the linear inequality, it's basically like working on a linear equation. So if I have something like 3x plus 2 is less than 4, then you can subtract 2 from both sides, right? So 3x is less than 2. And then you can divide both sides by 3. X is less than 2/3. So this is exactly how you would do this in a normal equation, right? Just as if this was an equal sign, these two would be equivalent to saying 3x plus 2 is equal to 4. Okay, so the other difference between inequalities and equal signs and equations are that whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip the sign. So let me give you guys an example. If we have negative 3x minus 7 is less than or equal to, let's say 12. So if first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 7 to both sides. We're going to negative 3x is going to be less than or equal to 19. And now we're going to divide both sides by negative 3, right? So we're going to divide this side by negative 3 and this side by negative 3. So now we're going to get x is greater than or equal to negative 19 over 3. Because when we divide by that negative, the sign flips. So that is the second difference between equations and inequalities. And my third tip is and this applies more to word problems, and we'll get to that later on, but just understanding what less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to mean, and how to apply them in certain situations, and that, how to graph them, what they literally mean, that anything on the left is either greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to the thing on the right. So with that, let's just do some practice problems. So the first question is question number 107. Which number line below shows the solution set for 2x minus 2, which is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 4x plus 10 when y equals 1? So the first thing we're going to do is plug in y equals 1. So we're going to rewrite this as 2x minus 2 is less than or equal to 1 is less than or equal to 4x plus 10. And now we can basically break this up into two individual inequalities. So we know that 2x minus 2 is going to be less than or equal to 1. And we also know that 1 is going to be less than or equal to 4x plus 10. So now we can just solve each of these individually and then recombine them at the end. So let's do that. Here, we're going to add 2 on both sides. So we're going to get 2x is less than or equal to 3. And now we're going to divide both sides by 2. And we're going to get x is less than or equal to 3 halves. So that's our first side. And now we have 1 is less than or equal to 4x plus 10. First thing we're going to do is subtract 10 from both sides to get rid of the 10. So we're going to get negative 9 is less than or equal to 4x. And now we're going to have to divide by 4 on both sides to isolate x. So we're going to get negative 9/4 is less than or equal to x. So now we have our two parts. We can recombine this at the end, right? So we can recombine this to say negative 9/4 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 3 halves. And now we just got to look at our answer choices and see which answer choice represents that. So already looking at A, 3 halves is going to be over here, right? So we already know that this is wrong, and same with B, right? And we looking at C, both of these are on 3 halves, right? So now let's look at the other side, negative 9/4. So that is going to be greater than 2, right? Because 9/4 is equal to 2 and 1/4, right? So negative 9/4 is going to equal negative 2 and 1/4. So we should be looking for something that is less than negative 2. And we can see here that that is going to be answer choice C. So that is the answer choice for this question. Let's move on. 95. Which graph represents a solution to negative 3x minus 7 is greater than negative 4? So this one is actually an easier question than the first one we did. Here, let's just rewrite this. We're going to try to isolate x again. So first we're going to add 7 to both sides. So negative 3x is greater than, adding 7, we're going to get 3. And now we have to divide both sides by negative 3, but this is what you need to remember. The sign flips, right? So dividing both sides by negative 3, you get x is less than negative 1, right? So that is going to be what we're looking for here. And another thing to remember here is that it's less than, not less than or equal to. So less than correlates to an empty circle, and less than or equal to correlates to a filled-in circle. Whenever they have a equal to part, it's a filled-in circle, and whenever they don't, it's just a normal circle without a filled-in part. So let's just go look at our answer choices. We have x is less than negative 1. That looks like answer choice A, but let's just make sure. This is x is less than 1, but we know it needs to be negative 1, so it's not this. This is greater than negative 1, that's wrong. And this is greater than 1, that's also wrong. So the answer choice is A. So let's go to our next one. Which number line represents the values of x that satisfy the inequality negative 5 is less than or equal to 1 minus 3x is less than or equal to 4? So again, let's just rewrite this. And here, just like the previous problem, we can split these into two individual equations. So we're going to go negative 5 is less than or equal to 1 minus 3x, and 1 minus 3x is less than or equal to 4. Now we're just going to solve each of these individually. So here we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. So we're going to get negative 6 is less than or equal to negative 3x. We're going to divide both sides by negative 3. And again, the sign flips. So let's just remember that. Dividing by negative 3, we get x, and dividing negative 6 by negative 3, we get 2. So x has to be less than or equal to 2. Now let's look at our second one. Negative 3, we have to subtract 1 from both sides, right, to get rid of that 1. So we get negative 3 is less than 3. Negative 3x is less than 3. And now, again, we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. So we're going to get x is greater than or equal to negative 1. So here we have our inequality. Negative 1 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 2, right? So let's look at the answer choices that represent that, remembering the differences between filled-in circles and clear circles, empty circles, right? And because we have equal signs for both, we are going to be looking in for filled-in circles. So immediately we can cross out E and G. And now we know that it has to be from negative 1 to 2, which is answer choice F. So we can eliminate H. In our last question, which inequality is equivalent to 6x minus 20, which is less than 5x minus 2 times 5 minus 3x? This is similar to the inequality that, to the order of operations questions that we did in previous videos. So first thing we're going to do here is, I'm going to rewrite it. And then what we're going to do here is, because there aren't two inequality symbols, we don't actually need to split this up into two things. We're just going to undergo normal order of operations, right? So let's just remember that. Let's write that down for us. Das, right? We just need to remember that. Looking at this, parentheses, right? That's here. So we can quickly, open those parentheses. So we got 6x minus 20 is less than 5x. Now you have to distribute this negative 2. Right? So negative 2 times 5 is going to be negative 10. and negative 2 times negative 3x is going to be plus 6x. And now we can combine like terms. We have two x terms here, so we can get 6x minus 20 is less than 11x minus 10. Now we can subtract 6x from both sides, so we can get negative 20 is less than 5x minus 10. Now we can add 10 to both sides, so we can get negative 10 is less than 5x. Now, finally, we can divide both sides by 5 to get x is greater than negative 2, which is, let's look at this, that is answer choice D. And remember, this might be a little confusing, but this is the same thing as what we wrote here. It's just that we wrote it completely flipped, but they are equivalent. So that's all for this video. I hope you guys found this helpful. I hope you guys understand how inequalities work now, the differences between them and equations. And we're going to keep posting as usual every week. So just make sure to check us out, comment, like, subscribe, whatever. And just make sure to reach out if you have any questions, and we'll see you next week.